In this video, you will learn how to multiply polynomials. We will specifically be multiplying binomials times trinomials, as well as trinomials times trinomials. Remember, when naming polynomials, a monomial has one term, a binomial has two terms, and a trinomial has three terms. Terms are separated by plus and minus signs, so trinomials have 1, 2, 3 terms separated by those plus and minus. Binomials have two terms, again separated by a plus or a minus sign, and of course a monomial would have no plus or minus signs because it is just one term. So let's look at our example. Number 5, we have a binomial of x plus 2 that we're going to multiply with the trinomial x squared minus 5x plus 4. So you should have previously learned how to multiply binomials times binomials. This will be much the same, as we're going to use the distributive property to multiply. Let's start with our first term, x. We're going to multiply it with the trinomial x squared minus 5x plus 4. So let's rewrite that x times the trinomial that we have, x squared minus 5x plus 4. So we're going to end up multiplying this first term times the entire trinomial. We'll also multiply the 2 times the entire trinomial, x squared minus 5x plus 4. So let's write that. We have our positive 2. Don't forget that positive or negative sign. Based on what you have in the problem, you need to write it here in your work. So we're going to multiply that 2 times the x squared minus 5x plus 4. Now that we have it set up, we will just distribute. So x times x squared is x cubed. We're adding 1 plus 2, adding those exponents gives us x cubed, minus 5x squared, because x times 5x is 5x squared. X times 4 is 4x. 2 times x squared is 2x squared. 2 times negative 5x is negative 10x. And 2 times 4 is 8. I always advise going back and checking that multiplication so you didn't make any sort of simple mistakes and add instead of multiply or multiply instead of add when you should have, because we always add our exponents and multiply our coefficients when doing this step. Now we're ready to combine our like terms. So look at each term. It is recommended to start with the highest exponent. So here we have an x cubed, so we can put it in standard form. Standard form means starting with your highest exponent until you get to the coefficient, or until you get to the constant that has no variable. So this is an x to the third term that has nothing else to combine with. We also have here next a negative 5x squared and a positive 2x squared. So negative 5 plus 2 gives us a negative 3x squared. When you combine like terms, your answer should be that like term. So if you combine x squared terms, your answer should be an x squared term. Let's move on to our x terms. We have 4 x's and negative 10x. So 4 take away 10 is negative 6x. And then finally we'll bring down our plus 8. It doesn't have anything to combine with, but it does need to be part of your answer. Let's look at another one of those. Number 6. Here we have 3x minus 4. So we're going to multiply that binomial with negative 2x to the second power plus 5x minus 6. So multiplying the binomial times the trinomial. Feel free to pause the video to try this on your own and come back and check your work. Let's set this up. We're going to multiply the 3x times the whole parentheses, the whole second parentheses. So 3x times the negative 2x squared, the positive 5x, and the negative 6. Be careful that you copy the problem correctly. Sometimes students miss the problem just over the fact that they miscopy the problem. So 3x, we're going to multiply it times that whole second parentheses. We're also going to do the negative 4 times the whole second parentheses. So negative 4, again, it's important that you get your sign, especially in this case because it is negative. We're going to multiply that with negative 2x squared plus 5x minus 6. So let's distribute. 3x times negative 2x. Multiply your coefficients first. 3 times negative 2 gives us negative 6. X times x squared, we'll add those exponents, giving us x cubed. We have 1 here with the 3x, 2 there with the x squared, or negative 2x squared. Adding those gives us 3 when we multiply. Now we're going to take 3x times 5x. That gives us 15x squared. Once again, multiplying 3 times 5, those coefficients give us a 15. And x times x is x squared. 3x times negative 6 gives us negative 18x. Multiplying a positive times a negative is a negative. 3 times 6 is 18, and of course we have our x. Let's distribute the negative 4 to the parentheses. So we get positive 8x squared, and negative times a negative is a positive. 4 times 2 is 8, and of course we need to bring down our x squared since there's no other variables to multiply, but it still needs to be part of that term. We have negative 4 times the 5x, so that's going to be a negative 20x. The negative times positive is a negative. 4 times 5 is 20, and of course again bring down your x. And finally we have negative 4 times negative 6. Negative times negative is a positive. 4 times 6 is 24. And we don't have a variable in this case. So once again, go back and check your work so that you don't make any simple multiplication or addition errors at this point. Now we're ready just to combine our like terms. Start with the largest exponent. We have an x cubed, so there's no other x cubes to combine it with. So negative 6x cubed is in our answer. Then we have an x squared term here and as well as here. So 15 plus 8, that gives us 23x squared. As always, when we combine like terms, our answer is that like term. Since we combine x squared terms, we have an x squared term. Let's see, our next terms, we have a x term here. Feel free to use different shapes or as I'm doing, underlines to represent each of the different terms. Here, negative 18 minus 20. I know that's me, a negative 38x. Negative 18 and negative 20 makes negative 38. And of course we have x terms, so our answer is an x term. And then finally bring down your plus 24 as part of your final answer. Let's look at one last example, number 7. Here we're going to have x cubed plus x squared plus 2x. We're going to multiply that trinomial times x to the 4th minus x to the 3rd plus x squared. So really for this problem, it's important that you stay organized in your work in order to do it correctly. So let's set this up. Again, the first term times the whole second parentheses. So x cubed times, rewrite that parentheses. Do that again for each term in that first parentheses. So we're going to say x squared times that second parentheses and the 2x times the second parentheses. So you can see already how much room this problem's already going to take up, so that's why it's important to keep organized with your work. So now we just got to start multiplying. It is going to use some exponent properties. When you multiply x cubed times x to the 4th, we're going to add those exponents. So that gives us x to the 7th. Multiplying here again, we're going to add those exponents. So a negative x to the 6th. And then again, adding exponents, we get x to the 5th. When you multiply powers, you add their exponents. Let's move on to the next distributive property. Again, adding those exponents. So we get x to the 6th, x to the 5th, and x to the 4th. All while being careful of your signs, go back and check positive times positive, positive times negative, and again a positive times positive. So being careful with each of those terms. And then finally, we this time don't have an exponent larger than 1. There is a 1 here if you need to write it in, But we also have a coefficient, so we are going to need to multiply that 2 through each of the terms. So 2x times x to the fourth, it is 2x to the fifth, still adding those exponents together, minus 2x times x to the third gives us 2x to the fourth, and then 2x times x squared, again 2x to the third, adding those exponents. So I highly recommend going back and just self-checking each multiplication to make sure you added correctly when you're supposed to add, you multiplied correctly when you're supposed to multiply, as well as even getting your signs correct for each of your terms, because you see there's so many things going on here. It's very simple to make a small mistake. Let's start at the highest exponent. If you need to reorder these so they're right beside one another, you can always do that. But I do prefer my circling or underline or marking in some way method. That way I know I've dealt with each term. So my highest exponent is x to the 7th. And that's going to be the first term since there's nothing else to combine it with. I have here a negative x to the 6th and a positive x to the 6th. There's no other x to the 6th. Because one's negative, one's positive, they actually cancel one another out. So in our final answer, we won't have any x to the 6th terms. Here we have an x to the 5th, a negative x to the 5th, but then we also add 2x to the 5th. So here this negative and positive x to the 5th cancel one another out, but then we still need to add 2x to the 5th, so that's going to be in our final answer. Moving on to x to the 4th, we have x to the 4th that we're going to take away. Let's box them up. X to the 4th, we're going to take away 2x to the 4th. So this is 1. Show that coefficient if you need. 1 take away 2 will give us a negative 1. Again, when you combine like terms, your answer should be that like term. So this is going to be a negative 1 x to the 4th. Or you could just say negative x to the 4th. The 1 is not necessary. And then finally we have our 2x to the 3rd. Do something to keep yourself organized because you see as many terms as we had, it could have been very easy to overlook one or use one more than what it really should. So mark them, underline them, do something to keep organized with your work. Our simplified answer could be just written x to the 7th plus 2x to the 5th minus x to the 4th plus 2x cubed.